So today I'm calling out the scammers who are running around the internet telling people you don't have to pay taxes. These people are not heroes. They're not patriots. They're scammers. And if you follow their advice, you're the one who's probably going to get burned. Advice.com here. Now, I hate taxes. Taxation is absolutely theft. If I could make them go away tomorrow, I would do it. And I don't think there's a moral duty to pay taxes, except I got to stay out of jail to take care of my family. And that's why I pay taxes. It's extortion. But here's the deal. As much as I hate taxes, if you don't pay them, the IRS is probably going to come after you. If they catch you, they will fine you. If you don't pay the fines, they will send you to prison. And sometimes they'll send you to prison for making frivolous arguments or committing tax evasion on the first time they catch you. So today I'm calling out the scammers who are running around the internet telling people you don't have to pay taxes. These people are not heroes. They're not patriots. They're scammers. And if you follow their advice, you're the one who's probably going to get burned. These guys piss me off. I spend my days helping people legally avoid taxes, and there are tons of legitimate strategies, deductions, credits, business structures, investment tools that can let you save thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars perfectly legally. Heck, if you do real estate properly, it is entirely possible to go years or decades without actually owing any income taxes perfectly legally. But these scammers, they're telling people the system doesn't apply. They make it sound easy. You don't have to pay if you say these magic words or if you put this on this form. They sell books, courses, memberships, etc. And regular people, hardworking people, tradesmen, small business owners, regular people get sucked in. And frankly, I find a lot of libertarians get sucked in too. Then the IRS shows up, and suddenly that easy trick turns into liens, penalties, and sometimes prison. Pretty much all these scammers rely on two games, and most of them do both, but some of them mix up how much of one or the other they do. But in both cases, it's mostly definitions. So I've seen them say something like, oh, this word means X, and look here, it's in this law. Therefore, that tax law doesn't apply to you. For example, the definition of corporation is much narrower under securities law than under the tax code. So they may point at the definition in securities law and say, oh, you're not a corporation. That doesn't apply to you. Well, it doesn't under securities law, but it does under tax law. Similarly, the definition of employee is much narrower under the Fair Labor Standards Act than the tax code. Typically, owners of companies are not employees under the Fair Labor Standards Act, but they usually are under the tax code. So that's not how the law works. When Congress writes a law, like the Internal Revenue Code, the definitions in that law are what matter. You don't get to pull the definition out of a law book or out of Black's legal dictionary and use that to cancel out the tax code. That's just Fantasyland. The more common thing I'm seeing, especially these days, is they go hunting for definitions with the word includes. And then they say, see, it only applies to what's listed here. But here's the truth. And any lawyer, any first-year law student knows that when the law defines something to include something, it means you take the ordinary meaning of that word and then add whatever is included. So, for example, and I see this a lot with these scammers, they point to the definition of state and the United States. And they say, look, the tax code says that the definition of state includes the District of Columbia. So only the District of Columbia is a state. No, that's not what that means. It means the 50 states plus DC count as states for this tax code. And in both these cases, these scammers are either lying or they forget the most important thing. The law doesn't mean what you think it means when you read it. It means what the courts have interpreted it to mean. In my humble opinion, these courts are often wrong and define laws in really stupid ways. I've literally seen them define or to mean and I've seen them define and to mean or. It doesn't matter. Once those courts define it that way, that's what the law means. So if you're just reading the statutes and you're not looking at the case law, you don't know what the law means. And I get so angry at this because when you follow these scams, you're the one left holding the bag, at least with the IRS. They don't care that you read it on a website or that you watched a video. They don't care that you bought a $5,000 tax freedom course. The IRS is not going to arrest the guys who sold it to you, but they might arrest you. Now, I have seen the FBI go after some of these guys, but usually not. Oh, and by the way, sometimes, a lot of the time, these tax scammers, they're actually paying their taxes because they know they need to. And sometimes the IRS finds these guys and waits and waits and waits. And then after 5 or 6 years, they charge them and they send subpoenas and they get their customer lists. And then they go after all those customers. Now, the courts have ruled on these arguments again and again and again. The IRS literally has an entire web page going over these arguments and citing the case law as to why they're frivolous arguments. It's like 60 pages if you print it out. Judges throw out these arguments all the time. People go to jail for following them. Wesley Snipes, kind of famously, fell into one of these traps. He went to prison. I've seen families ruined by the penalties and the interest and the liens because someone convinced them they were smarter than the system. And because the IRS has already defined these as frivolous, it's far easier for them to prove evasion, and it's far easier for them to send you to prison. So if you want to pay less in taxes, there are real ways to do it. That's what I help people do. If you run a business, you structure it smartly to save on self-employment taxes. You make sure you're taking as many business deductions for your expenses as you can. If you own property and you rent it out, it's real estate, that's investment. You can use cost segregation. You can use bonus depreciation. You can use cash out refinances. There's lots of ways to save money on taxes. There's lots of ways to invest and get deductions or even tax credits. But none of this happens by ignoring the law. It happens by using the tax law. It's tax judo. Use the law against them. That's what the wealthy do. That's what smart business owners do. They don't fall for the scammers promising magic words. They use strategies that actually work and that hold up in an audit. So don't fall for the lies. Don't let these scammers talk you into being the next headline about some sovereign citizen who thought he outsmarted the IRS. There are plenty of legal, legitimate ways to slash your taxes, but pretending the system doesn't apply to you is not one of them.